the managerial merry-go-round, especially in Serie A, is hotting up. Loads of people moving around, and I think Roma have made the most not sensible, but definitely the most exciting managerial appointment, possibly in Europe this summer. They are set to appoint Gian Piero Gasperini as their new manager, and it is absolutely fantastic. All right, so we're going to dive into how he's set up his side, the remarkable things that he's done with the turnover of squad, all the best players which have left the club over the last few years. As you could see, Coop Miners, 60 million euros departed in last summer. Hoyland, maybe not so much, but Boga, Demiral, Christian Romero, Robin Gosens, Roger Ibanez, Gianluca Mancini, Castagne, Papu Gomez, bit of a cult figure at the club, Kulusevski, Kessie, Crisante, and as early as one of the early ones in his managerial career as well, Bastoni, moving to Inter Milan. So the turnover has been absolutely incredible, and tactics have pretty much stayed the same. We're going to have a whole host, by the way, you Patreons are in for a treat today, because there'll be about 5 or 6 different variations for you to use in your Football Manager save. So what does a Gasperini style look like? How does it suit Roma? Because I think it actually does with the current crop of players. How it looks in FM. And in particular, we're really going to dive into the interesting real life / FM kind of tactical problems that we get. In particular, looking at how well Gasperini uses his wing backs in real life and how we can try and best we can put that into FM. All right, let's go. So a Gasperini tactic generally is a variation of a 3-4-3. With over the years, it has been a 3-4-2-1. It has been a 3-4-1-2. For the majority of this season, it's been a little bit of a 3-4-2-1 with the wide players having very different roles, similar to kind of Manchester United, with one player maybe being that wide attacking player in maybe Ademola Lookman, and then that other one, the attacking midfielder, might be someone of a Pasalic or might be even someone like Calatakare, someone like that who's a bit more of a attacking central midfielder, very well balanced in terms of a ball player, and then someone who's going to really stretch the play. So the main thing that Atalanta do, and this is the big part that we're going to try and put into FM today, is how they press. Everything is done. There's not really a style of play in terms of getting the ball forward. They've definitely quickened it up, and possession numbers have not been as dominant as what they have been in earlier Gasperini tactics. But it is everything out of position, getting that ball back, really pressing high and aggressive with certain players. And these 2 players in particular are the 2 wing backs. So what we're going to set up here, this is the 3-4, sort of like 3-4-2-1, and we're going to kind of mimic what they may do. And this is the press that they actually did against Liverpool in Champions League. So the striker will often shut out a passing lane. So it might look something a little bit like this, where they'll kind of shut out a passing lane with maybe the outside wide player, and then the striker, they'll force the ball one side, and then the striker will come round and they cut things off like that. And then once that ball's played out to the fullback, it's then the job, not of this attacking midfielder. It's normally the job of the wing-back to come and press with very much a man-to-man pressing scheme all over the pitch. Super effective when the team is on it. And I think if you're signing for Atalanta, you're going to know that you're going to probably do things a little bit different to maybe what you've been used to in terms of this press. And then all it is touch tight, aggressive. Now, the issues that they do face a lot of the time is clever movements with maybe strikers dropping in, creating a space, and then maybe a number 10 moving in. If that number 8 is not completely on it and not savvy enough for it, then that's the potential issue. However, I think, especially over the last few years, goals conceded over the last few years in particular has been a lot better. So maybe they're coping a little bit defensively. I suppose if you're this number 8 and you may be marking the number 10, you may be knowing that at some point he's going to try and exploit that space. So if you're kind of half knowing it's going to happen, you can probably set yourself and get a little bit prepared for it. So that is how they press. As I said, in build-up, what they tend to do is get the full-backs, the wing-backs, as we like to call them, in particular, really high. The middle of the pitch is kind of vacated, and it'll often look a little bit like that, where the 2 defensive midfielders come in really deep to try and protect and get on the ball, kind of split either side of the wide centre half. So you've got them sort of like a little half spaces filled. The wing backs getting exceptionally high and wide. And then these sort of like spaces here. Now, at times they will drop in. There'll be clever movements in here from the strikers. So it's as if no one will ever go in. But what they don't do is go in there and stand. If they can as well, if they can work it, people like Edison in particular, who I'd love Manchester United to sign this summer, is one that can definitely carry the ball in. If not, and he's pressed, can then work it, and then a fullback will go and carry with it. So they like to carry into these spaces left and keep the sort of like the front five really high and wide. And with that, looking at the Roma squad, it's actually really well balanced for a Gasperini tactic. Jose Mourinho, and now in particular, I know he took over halfway through the season, but Claudio Ranieri both played with like a back five, back three. It's a very different, a Jose 5 is a 5, and a back three with a Jose compared to a back three with a Gian Piero Gasperini is very different. So there's maybe a couple of signings they may want to look at, but they're heavily stacked. This is kind of squad. I have called back a few people on loan as well, but they're well stacked. Like Hummels will probably leave in the summer, but they've got Dicker, Hermoso coming back off loan, Victor Nelson, Mancini. They've also got, where is he that we've been playing there? Zelik, kind of a right fullback, but could definitely do a job as a right-sided centre-half. The wing-backs, they're more than well covered. They've got Deveni Rensch, Angelino on the left. They've also got Zaliski. Can't pronounce that one. He's on loan at Inter at the moment, but that's potentially someone that'll come back. They've also got players like Salamakers who's even though he's on loan this season, might be a deal that they might be able to do permanently. They've kind of well covered in the back three, back five areas. They've got good holding midfielders. They've got someone in Manu Kone who could definitely do that Edison role of tidying possession, getting the ball deep and driving with it, very much that sort of like Volante, box-to-box midfielder role. He would be superb at that. They've then got players such as Cristante, who's played under him at Gasperini at Atalanta. He'll be superb in that kind of that Martin Darun kind of not sitting and dictating, but sitting and being aggressive, blocking. There's a lot of players going forward, so we need a good holding midfielder, and they have that. They have then the quality with Pellegrini, who could play a little bit deeper in games, but also play that more central, maybe number 10. The only place where they're struggling a little bit is, and we've actually offset the tactic, we've flipped it round a little bit. So the only little issue that they've got is Ademola Lookman. So at Atalanta, Ademola Lookman is kind of the left attacking midfielder and likes to play as like an inverted winger on this side. And then the right side is very much more of a kind of attacking midfielder, number 10. Now, the issue that we've got at Roma is they haven't got many attacking wide players like El Shaarawy, but he's 31. Salamakers has maybe not got that quality to be an out-and-out number 10. They have got Sule, who prefers, because he's left-footed, prefers to be on the right. So what we could do, and what we are going to do, is actually, if we look at the early start of the tactic, we've got Sula on that right-hand side. So he's going to, so all we've kind of done with the tactic is just flip it slightly compared to the Atalanta version that he's currently using. Issue with Dybala, like he has had Papi Gomez, who was a bit of a cult figure at Atalanta, not great out of possession. He may go down the route of, a double striker. So at times they have gone with something a little bit looking like that. Could he be one of the front two, potentially? I maybe see it time for Dybala to move on. I don't know how the Roma fans would react to that. He's not amazing out of possession, but I said they have used Papi Gomez at certain points in his career, so he'll maybe think he might be able to get a tune out of him, but with his injury record being shocking, do they maybe see him off? They might have to put up with him for maybe another season. Will he go to Saudi? He's been linked several times with Saudi, so that'll be interesting. And then the front guys are sorted. They've got Shmodorov, Abraham, Dovbyk, who I really like. I'm hoping Tammy Abraham comes back in after his loan spell at Milan. And yeah, I think they may go down the route of more of a 3-4-1-2 maybe, with Pellegrini being that more central attacking midfielder, and then two strikers out of the four in Dybala, Shmodorov, Abraham and Dovbyk. But with Sula there, you kind of think he would be ideal at doing that Ademola Lookman kind of role. Maybe go out and sign maybe another wide player, attacking player, maybe a number 10 potentially, if they say goodbye. I think that's where they potentially will look. And then apart from that, especially if like Stalimakers stays and Lucas, it might not be. They've got Lucas Gorna-Duath on loan. Highly likely there might be like an obligation to buy or an option to buy. With that, and then a couple of signings, maybe a new centre-half and maybe a number 10/wide player, 3 players potentially, he'll be absolutely set and sorted. Looking at it in terms of FM, the main issue that we've kind of had is the role of these two wing-backs. All right, so we've started doing a variety of different things with them, as you could see. We've had this version here, which has been very much that standard complete wing back on support, wing back on attack, because we've got that space, because we've offset it compared to the Atalanta one. We've got it offset the other way. All these tactical recreations, by the way, will be down in the Patreon link down in the description if you want to support the channel. That would be superb. They're all there now as a direct download. I will go through all the team and player instructions through the tactics as we go, so you can kind of plug it into your own FM save yourself. But yeah, we've really dived in. I've actually done something a little bit different. We've played a couple of games, that's it. So be aware, this is not a tactical kind of guaranteed. I'm not trying to break the game and win every single game in the season. I'm literally trying to copy Gasperini's tactic from real life and put it into FM as close as I can. So this is just a foundation in terms of setting things up. This is why I don't play through seasons. I'm literally trying to get movements and positions of what you see in real life into FM. And what we have done is actually played Empoli twice. I've saved it. I've gone back in, I've altered it, and then I've played them again. I thought it would be a good one because Empoli are struggling. They're not a great side in FM. Generally get relegated. We're at home. We're fully fit. I thought it was a really good start to start like dive in and really see how, the more we have of the ball, really good to see how the players are pressing, in particular those wing backs. So this was the first variation. So what we actually did with, if I just zoom out a little bit. So the first thing we actually looked at was these two wing backs here. So we've got Rensch playing on the right hand side, and we've got Angelino playing on the left hand side. Now, because Rensch has got Sula in front of him, I decided to have him as a complete wing back on support. On the left hand side, we've played Angelino as a defensive winger. And it's interesting, as you can see, as the ball's been kicked and played, if we just take it back from the goalie, as the ball's been played, Rensch is immediately trying to get back in. Even just look at the body shape of the two players. Angelino is very much sitting into the midfield, looking at the player. Rensch is now heading back into that right back position. Now, I know we've won possession of the ball, we lose out here, but it's really interesting. Look, Angelino completely left that player. And that's because I've got him man-marking the right back. It's not perfect. I am really struggling with the man-marking in FM, and we need to really dive into it. I think I'm going to save it for a future video, maybe an FM25 video when the 26, no, it's FM25. FM26 comes out, that we'll dive in and really look at some of these tactical match engine potential flaws and ways around it, because it doesn't do an Ander Herrera kind of tactical man-marking job that he did on Eden Hazard with Jose Mourinho once. It's not like that, but it's just giving you an indication of what we're expecting. So remember, we want our wing-backs, our two wider players, to go and press their full-backs. And I think Rensch is now doing it, look, he's then decided to go out and mark their left-back because he's come into his little zone. But now, look, he's going back in. He's going out again. And he's going back in. Getting a little bit stuck between the two positions. And I think it's what I would say would be, in this scenario here, this is super confusing for that centre-half. I think if Rensch was out here, playing as more of a winger, it would then be like, Zelik would then move across, and then Mancini would move across and mark their striker. This is their other wide player that we've got playing at the moment. And I imagine, Indica, that's out. So we're kind of sorted. But because Rensch is doing that constant movement, I think it will complicate the game a little bit in terms of him marking that left centre forward, left winger at times, and then going back to left back. I think it confuses the game a little bit. So that little game gave me a good idea of how the differences between complete wing backs who are man marking. Because we want that man marking, because what we do want is that press. Maybe, yes, the wing-backs don't technically man-mark the full-backs of the other team, but it'll encourage that press when we're trying to press and get our full-backs or wide players further up the pitch. So with that, I then thought, right, let's go and play, as you can see, two defensive wingers. And then what we have done with the Sula role, we've kept him as an inverted winger, but we've just had him sit narrower to see if that would help. Because obviously we know, like, Salamakers is going to be playing hopefully, a little bit higher up the pitch. Now, this is where FM kind of plays into it a little bit, and it gives some odd movements at times. So I wanted Angelino to go press their right back here. Right, we've got him man-marking him. He's kind of in a decent position. I'm high. What they don't do is they don't stand next to them to stop the ball going in. It's a pressing trap and a trigger. So when the ball is played to the right centre-back and then played to the right back, that's when Angelino goes and presses. What he doesn't do is come and stand in this area here and allow the ball to then be played in behind. They want that ball to go to the right back. And when it does, I thought he's in a... Look, Dicker's here. He's marking the left forward or whatever it is. I think they're probably their right winger. He can go and press. And frustratingly, he doesn't, and the central midfielder comes out and does it. He's starting to move up the pitch. Right, now we break it down. I think if that was a right wing-back and not a defensive winger, he would be back behind Gyasi, or at least closer to him. He then makes a strange run. He actually tracks the run really well, which, once again, he doesn't need to do. We've not got him man-marking. I've got him man-marking, by the way, the left full-back. So it's something at the moment that we can't get right in the game. And now, look, the movement's been made. Salimakis has gone back into a midfield role. And then Zelik, the right centre-back, has gone out to deal with Gyasi, who's the left winger. So it's super confusing. And it's far from perfect. But what I have found is, as defensive wingers, look at Angelino getting a lot higher up the pitch and having that real out ball on left-hand side. So with those couple of kind of scenarios, I'm going to put a few tactics in for the Patreons, but the one that I think is most likely to give you the right kind of movements is this one. What you could do as well, so this is the 3-4-2-1 with defensive wingers. We've got the 3-4-2-1 with complete wing-back with wing-back. And then we've also got the other variation. Once again, you could move those wing-backs up to play as more of to play as defensive wingers. So I will leave that to you. I said this one has probably been my most common one in terms of I think it's closer to what the game is, what we're trying to see in the game. So attacking mentality, lots of risk on the ball, not overly important about keep possession. They do like to go direct, especially over the years when they've had players like Skamaka. They want the ball, even Hoyland that season he had with them where he went in behind, a lot of passes into space. So we're going to go attacking mentality, pass the ball into space because we want the wide areas. We've got Lookman, obviously, at Atalanta. Balls are often played into the channels for the wing-backs to push up. Fairly wide attacking width. Play out a defence. But we're also focusing down play left and right. Stays out of that middle. Remember that gaping hole that we said at the start of the video? They often vacate that central area and they try and get the overloads down the left-hand side with maybe an attacking midfielder, a wide centre-back, a winger, and then defensive midfield. They've got a nice little diamond. So they try and work in triangles and diamonds round down the side of the pitch. Standard passing, not overly important about keeping possession. If you're worried about your possession numbers and maybe in some of the bigger games, you could drop that down. Tempo, higher, and everything else left blank. They sometimes cross side, they cross low, they dribble in, they work it in, they shoot from distance, they cross early. There's no real set pattern attacking structure when it comes to Atalanta. In transition, we're going to counter press. We're going to counter very much, the counter press will try and win back that ball high up the pitch is obviously what we want to see. They've been a little bit less. Their PPDA numbers are not as crazy as what they have been. That's maybe contributed as well to maybe their defensive record being slightly better, but we're still going to counter press. We're still going to counter. Just the ball to the back three. We want to play with the back three, try and get that overload in nice and early with the three centre-half splitting and going nice and wide. And then we're going to roll it out. And then out of possession, much higher line. Don't prevent short distribution. You don't want that on because we're trying to encourage that ball going out to the right full-back or left full-back. And then high line, much high line, everything else left blank. All right, now the team instructions, it's been really tricky, but I think the real thing, remember, everyone is super tight and super aggressive. So sweeper keeper for the goalkeeper, no play instructions. The two wide centre-backs, mark tighter. If you've got a really good dribbler or a decent dribbler, like Ndika, to be fair, he's dribbling to 11, so what you could do is go in and put dribble more on if you wanted. I'll tell you what, I'll put that one in now. Because what they will do, if they get the opportunity to carry, I think it's important sometimes with your back three, it's really important to, if you can, carry it when you've got that overload, especially if they're playing with a lone striker, can you work it round while 3v2 and then drive into those central areas that have been vacated? And then the main centre-back, Mancini, I've gone ball-playing defender on stopper. It needs to be stopper, but you can put it, depending on what kind of footballer you've got in there, you could do it, but make sure you've got Mark tighter on. It needs to be a stopper because want him going in there, being super aggressive, closing down maybe that central striker. You could even at times, a little bit of overkill, go in and mark Moani, look, because we're playing Juve next, go in and mark that central striker. Cristante have gone with a defensive midfielder on defend or play instructions, mark tighter. But at the same time, it could be an anchor if you wanted. It could be a ball-winning midfielder on defend. Not too much in terms of defensive. I think if you're wanting to just change it slightly, you could probably go a DLP on defend. You don't want a half-back because that will disrupt their build-up a little bit too much. Because we flipped it, remember, this would have been Ederson on the left-hand side for Atalanta, but Kone will be superb at it. Volante on support, and make sure you've got Mark Titer on, because we want it as aggressive as possible. Now, the two wide players have said the best thing I would do is defensive wingers on support. You can't do Mark tighter, but they're going to tackle harder and close down more anyway. The inverted winger on attack, that Lookman kind of role, sit now and Mark tighter, just so we get that little bit of movement. When Salimakers goes in, Sula goes in that way, or as soon as Sula goes in, then that's the option. It does work. I think someone asked me in a previous video, they get in their way a little bit, but nothing in terms of like when the ball is played out to this side, they do make them nice little movements in and then out, or then up and then in, depending on which way it works round. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And then Pellegrini on this left-hand side, stay wider and mark tighter once again, with Abraham up front, complete forward, deep line forward on attack, advance forward. You could literally get any of those roles in. You do want them to go in behind. So a complete forward, DLF, advance forward, maybe even a target forward on attack, I think will work. No problem at all for you. Now, couple of things if you want to change it up a little bit. Absolute overkill. You could actually go in, and on some of these, it will give you the option. Let me find one. There you go. Trigger press more often. Not always. Some will do it like as in the player instructions, but if you want to be super good at it, super aggressive, then by all means do that. And then the other one is the opposition instruction. So I've kind of spoke about like Salemakers. I would have him marking the left back, which is Cambiasso, and then I would have Angelino marking the right back for Juventus, which would be Kalulu. And that will maybe help the movements of the press a little bit, so do that. Also in the out of possession, when you go to this every single game, I would never trigger press the goalie, because you want in the goalkeeper to have the ball, and we're waiting for that kind of pressing structure. We don't want the striker to go and close down the goalie and then play around by having two free centre halves. I would then highlight the rest, and I would do tighter marking and trigger press. I'm not sure how this, with all the player instructions, if it has reached its maximum and it doesn't do anything, or having that all trigger pressed then sends it into a little bit of overdrive. I haven't dived into that, but that's what I would tend to do to try and recreate, to make sure every single player is pressed, every single player is tight marked, and it's been super aggressive with that man-to-man kind of press, orientated press. That's what I would go with. All right, that is it. That is Gasperini at Roma. Hope you've enjoyed it. Something very different in terms of how teams are pressing and structurally working. And yeah, there's definitely downfalls to it, and you may come up against them. Maybe bringing the wingers back to fullbacks in certain games, complete wingbacks, attacking wingbacks rather than defensive wingers. That'll maybe help you in games such as, we're going to play Juventus next. So that might be a thing that you might want to do. However, it's not the Gasperini way. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.